I can't believe it. Mongolia has actually made a zombie movie. As our neighbor, the country has always had a very low profile, especially its movies. Most people have probably never seen a single one. And just recently, they actually made a zombie film. Regardless of the movie's quality, just for the combination of Mongolia and zombies, I have to show this to you all. No audio. A bus slowly drives down the highway. On board is a group of young offenders. They are being sent to a remote boot camp for a year-long reform through labor program. The offenders naively think it's just a change of scenery. Little do they know, a nightmare awaits them. On the first day at the camp, to make the offenders obedient, an instructor, under the supervisor's watch, severely punishes one of the troublemakers. During dinner that evening, even though everyone was eating fine in the cafeteria, the instructor insisted on taking them outside, placing their food on the ground, and forcing them to eat like dogs. When the short-haired woman merely expressed her dissatisfaction, she was harshly whipped by the female instructor, who then spray-painted a mark on her clothes. This was a warning, more than 2 marks, and her sentence would be extended by a month. Hearing this, a timid offender quickly complied. The others had no choice but to submit. By comparison, their previous prison was a paradise. In this camp, there were no human rights. Sure enough, after just a few days, someone couldn't take it anymore and chose to escape. Grunt.
¿Dónde está?
But even after running until dawn, he couldn't escape the forest. In the end, he was caught by the guards. The instructor used this as an opportunity to show everyone the consequences of escaping. After a brutal beating, he almost beat the offender to death. Not only that, he was to be locked in an outdoor cage to endure freezing and starvation for 3 days and nights. Then, the instructor warned everyone, although the camp has no fences, if anyone tries to escape, their fate will be even worse than his, and everyone else will be implicated. This time, the punishment is no dinner. In the days that followed, the sadistic instructor continued to find ways to torture the offenders. Not only was there physical torment, but also psychological humiliation. Enduring such long-term oppression, they became determined to leave the camp. Otherwise, he would kill them sooner or later. Finally, one night, their chance came. 2 men in suits suddenly arrived at the camp. The supervisor personally greeted them. They seemed important. Shortly after, the instructor came to the barracks and took one of the more obedient offenders. Seeing that most of the guards had followed, the inmates immediately realized this was a golden opportunity. So they quickly got dressed and escaped. Meanwhile, the offender was taken to a secret laboratory. A researcher in a hazmat suit was injecting him with a serum. Everyone gathered around to watch. There was also a little girl nearby. It seemed some kind of experiment was underway. But the next second, something terrible happened. The offender who received the injection suddenly went berserk and pounced on a nearby researcher. Everyone scrambled to get out. But terrifyingly, the bitten person also started to turn. In the end, except for a few leaders who managed to escape, everyone else turned into bloodthirsty zombies. Seeing the situation, the guards outside decisively opened fire, instantly taking down the zombies that chased them out. But just as they thought it was over, and were about to deal with the bodies, the zombies suddenly reanimated and attacked them. The escaping inmates witnessed this horrific scene. The zombies spotted them too, and quickly charged. Several inmates were instantly tackled. The entire camp descended into chaos. The instructor was also desperately fighting off zombies, while the supervisor ran for a truck, trying to drive away. But just as he was about to get in, a zombie pounced on him. Although he managed to kill the zombie, after he got in the truck, he found a deep bite mark on his hand. The supervisor couldn't worry about that now. He floored the gas and fled. The instructor, having finally dealt with the zombies, saw the selfish supervisor driving away. Meanwhile, the surviving inmates, after a night of running, finally escaped the pursuing zombies. They even ran into the instructor, who had also survived, in the woods. But right now, the biggest enemy was the zombies. So they didn't have the energy to settle scores with him. But then they happened to find that the truck the supervisor drove was stopped in the middle of the road. They wanted to use the truck to leave. So they worked together to kill the few zombies nearby. But just as the 2 of them managed to get into the driver's cab, the inmate, being too nervous, accidentally broke the key in the ignition. All their efforts were instantly wasted. The 2 had to get out of the truck, but the noise attracted more zombies. After some struggles, they had to return to the camp again. At least there were safe rooms to hide in. The instructor was furious about the inmate's mistake. He grabbed him and beat him on the ground, thinking he was still the boss here. But the situation had changed now. The inmates, who were greater in number, now had the upper hand. The long-haired woman asked him what was going on with the zombies. But the instructor said he wasn't sure either. He only knew they were conducting some kind of human experiment. But something went wrong. He was just responsible for providing them with test subjects. Only then did everyone realize the real reason they were sent to the camp was to be guinea pigs. The burly man, enraged, immediately tied up the instructor with a rope. They planned to take turns guarding him. The next day, they would go to the armory, get weapons, and fight their way out. The group rested for a night in an abandoned bus. Unexpectedly, the next morning, 2 more lucky inmates were seen sprinting through the woods, with 2 zombies chasing them closely behind. They also managed to escape back to the camp. The The long-haired woman helped them in through the window. But staying here wasn't a solution. So the burly man decided they should act immediately. But they now faced a problem. They had no vehicle. Even with weapons, it would be hard to escape on foot. But the instructor brought some good news. There was another working truck nearby, and there were several similar camps. One of them was not far from here. But just then, the man who had just escaped suddenly coughed up blood. This was a sign of infection. The man said he hadn't been bitten. But the next second, the short-haired woman found a scratch on his neck. It seems, even a scratch from a zombie can cause infection. The ever-decisive burly man prepared to eliminate the threat immediately. But the long-haired woman stopped him. She wouldn't let the burly man harm their companion. While the two were struggling, the man suddenly snatched the whistle from the instructor's neck and ran out of the bus without looking back. The zombies at the door were drawn to him. Seeing this, the others also followed, ready to head for the truck. No audio, but the instructor untied himself and went back to the laboratory. Unexpectedly, the female instructor and the little girl were still alive. It turned out the little girl had antibodies to the virus. She was the key to developing a vaccine. As soon as he heard this, the instructor knocked the female instructor unconscious and left the lab with the little girl. Meanwhile, the scratched man ran into the woods, blowing the whistle. He knew he was about to turn into a monster, so he chose to lure the zombies away, sacrificing himself to buy the others time to escape. The inmates took the chance to run for the truck, but there were still some zombies nearby. A female inmate at the back was tackled on the spot. The burly man and the long-haired woman fought their way through and managed to get the short-haired woman into the driver's seat. But just as the long-haired woman tried to start the truck, the burly man, trying to protect the short-haired woman, was bitten by several zombies. Knowing he was already infected with the virus, he decisively led the horde into the woods until he was finally overwhelmed by the zombies. Just as the long-haired woman managed to start the engine, the terrified short-haired woman, without waiting for her companion, drove the truck away and fled. The long-haired woman was also tackled by two zombies. If it weren't for the remaining two female inmates arriving in time, she probably wouldn't have survived either. With their hope of escape shattered, the three of them had no choice but to return to the camp. At this point, the instructor, relying on his own formidable skills, had fought his way out with the little girl. Their goal was to get to another camp. Meanwhile, the long-haired woman's group, after returning to the camp, also found the location of the other camp on a map. They also ran into the female instructor who had woken up. Although the female instructor had been arrogant before, the long-haired woman didn't give her a hard time. Right now, they just wanted to know the truth about the virus outbreak and how to get out of this hellhole. At this point, the female instructor had no other choice. She could only take them to the monitoring room and tell them the whole truth through the surveillance footage. It turned out that military scientists had discovered a parasite that could control the human brain. The military then began secret research, aiming to use the parasite to create a terrifying biological weapon. At the same time, they used the antibodies from the little girl to develop a vaccine for the virus. After 2 long years of experiments, they finally developed a vaccine. They then began live experiments on prisoners. However, the prisoner injected with the virus mutated. For some unknown reason, not only did the vaccine not work, it actually enhanced the virus's transmissibility. This is what led to the current situation. But even so, the female instructor still firmly believed that only the antibody in the little girl could stop this disaster. And now she had been taken by that other instructor. It turned out the instructor knew about the experiment from the beginning and was a key figure in it. Not at all clueless as he had claimed. They guessed he must have taken the little girl to the nearest camp. So they planned to go and get the little girl back. But the female instructor said she wanted to stay behind. Terrified of the zombies outside, she had lost all her previous arrogance. The long-haired woman didn't say much. She just left the monitoring room, following the map's route. The three of them soon found the nearby camp. But to their surprise, besides the instructor and the little girl, the short-haired woman who had abandoned them was also there. However, the two sides didn't immediately start fighting. The long-haired woman just wanted to talk to the instructor, hoping he would hand over the little girl. But the instructor said he was not only taking the little girl, but also the attractive short-haired woman. Seeing that there was no room for negotiation, the two were about to resort to force. But just then, the door was suddenly pushed open. The missing supervisor walked in with a gun. The atmosphere in the room instantly became even more tense. But since he had the truth in his hand, no one dared to make a move. The supervisor was already starving. He immediately grabbed the food on the table, put down his gun, and started eating ravenously. The instructor wanted to take the gun from the table, but the supervisor saw him just as he was about to make a move. The supervisor said he didn't want any trouble. He just wanted to get out of here alive. And the only way now was for everyone to work together. Only then would they have a chance of survival. But the instructor accused the supervisor of abandoning his men and leaving alone. To this, the supervisor explained that he had been bitten by a zombie at the time and had no choice. But he had injected the vaccine immediately, and he was fine now. But as soon as he finished speaking, the supervisor's expression changed drastically. Clearly, the vaccine hadn't worked. Seeing that he was about to turn, the instructor decisively moved forward, snatched the gun from his hand, and turned it on the long-haired woman who was trying to rush him. He signaled for the short-haired woman to take the little girl to the car first, planning to leave the long-haired woman here to fend for herself. But after getting in the car, the short-haired woman found that the other two female inmates were also inside. but she ignored their pleas and drove away, abandoning the long-haired woman again. The sound of the engine caught the instructor's attention. The long-haired woman seized the opportunity to fight back. The two instantly started brawling. But this time, not long after driving off, persuaded by the other woman, the short-haired woman suddenly had a change of heart and turned the car around. Meanwhile, after a fierce struggle, the long-haired woman managed to snatch the gun from him. She pulled the trigger without hesitation. The sound instantly alerted the nearby zombies. But she didn't have the heart to kill the instructor. She threw down the empty gun and left the house. But as soon as she got outside, she was attacked by several zombies. The instructor, following close behind, was also caught in a tough fight with the zombies. Now, the two of them had no choice but to fight the zombies together. Luckily, the short-haired woman returned with the car just in time. With the instructor providing cover, the long-haired woman managed to climb into the car. But he himself was caught by the zombies and couldn't escape. Seeing this, the long-haired woman immediately got out to save him. But just as she managed to pull him into the car, the next second, a zombie dragged him back into the horde. Even the woman in the driver's seat was unfortunately bitten on the hand. The female inmate in the back seat was even dragged out by the zombies. Seeing that the instructor had also been bitten, the woman had to start the car and drive away with the remaining people. After taking them to a safe place, the woman slammed on the brakes and stopped the car. About to turn, she knew her time was short. To avoid harming everyone, she chose to leave alone. After an unknown amount of time, the three survivors finally drove to a city. They thought they were finally safe. But the crisis was far from over. The city before them was already in ruins. It was clear it had been attacked by zombies. The zombie virus was completely out of control. After watching this Mongolian-made zombie movie, I can only say two words: unbeatable. Let's not even talk about the cliché script. The plot is completely illogical. The main characters run around with no clear objective. They have an armory, but don't get weapons. They have vehicles, but don't escape immediately. Also, the editing is very chaotic. The production quality looks like a group of interns practicing. It's even worse than some low-budget internet movies. The background music is also completely random. Some works are so bad they become masterpieces. Like Sharknado. It's very creative. You can watch it as a comedy. Other works are bad in a very distinctive way. They might be a bit risque or a bit gory. You can always find something to like. But this zombie movie is just a mess. You'd be better off rewatching Train to Busan a few more times. That's all for this video. Thanks to my dear fans for watching. See you next time.